Bonjour à tous, merci d'être avec nous cet après-midi. Je suis désolée du petit délai. Nous avons eu, maintenant on ne fait plus beaucoup de répétitions, en tout cas pour ce qui me concerne, et évidemment, mal m'en a pris puisque j'ai eu un petit problème technique de connexion de dernière minute. Donc on va commencer sans attendre. Satish is with us. Satish, it's such an honor for me to have you today with us. This speech was initially planned for UTOPIES team, and now we decided because we're going online, we can reach the whole world. So we've invited UTOPIES friends as well.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
very pleased to have you today. Especially, I was telling you when we met that I remember very well that maybe 20 or 24 years ago, in the very early years of Utopie, I had the pleasure to meet with my role model, Anita Roddick, the founder of the Body Shop that most people know, probably, or have heard about. Anita was probably the businesswoman I admired most. And in our long conversations, she would very often mention your name, or the Resurgence magazine, or the Shumacher College. So I think this is how I heard about you for the first time. And a few years later, I had another series of conversation with another exceptional woman whose name is Vandana Shiva, that you know quite well. And she also mentioned your name several times, which is why I was very happy when we eventually met a few months ago. Yeah. Thanks to Olivier Morel and Fanny Auger at Nature et Découverte.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for accepting to be with us today. This was supposed to be, as I said, a masterclass in real life in UTOPIES offices. But as you may know, because of this so-called pandemic, our offices are still closed. And in a way, the fact that this masterclass went online enabled us to invite more people. So with no sanitary protocol, no masks, no hydroalcoholic gel, etc. So maybe to start with Satish, we have a bit more than an hour together and we'll leave time for questions with the audience, obviously. But my first question to you, for also people who have joined us, either within UTOPIES team or friends, clients, etc. My first question would be obviously about a summary maybe of your very rich life to date. I think you're 83-year-old, so that's a bit of a life already. And especially because your life shows, I think, that one can be both an activist and a pacifist, both a journalist and an entrepreneur, etc. So can you tell us how it all started?
Okay. It's a long life. I have written my autobiography called No Destination, but it is not in French. It's only in English. So I started my life at age 9 by becoming a Jain monk. It's a very child monk. And the Jain religion in India is a very small religion, but it is one of the religions which has non-violence as its core. And non-violence not only for humans, but non-violence to nature. So all Jains are vegetarians. And as a Jain monk, I never traveled by any transportation. No cars, no bicycle, no boat, no train, no plane, nothing. Just on my 2 legs, 2 feet. So complete non-violence and non-violence to nature. So my ecology and my love for nature and my reverence for nature, and more than that, I can say my religion of nature started as a Jain monk. And then I was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi said that you have to bring your spirituality in the world and not keep spirituality only in the monastery. And so I decided to leave my monastic order and join the Gandhian movement. And there was a very great Gandhian man called Vinoba Bhave, and he was working to create independence, economic independence, social independence for India through non-violent means. And therefore he was going from village to village and home to home and town to town, walking all over India. For 14 years he walked more than 100,000 miles. And he was asking landlords to give land for the poor. He said, if you have 5 children, consider the poor your 6th child and give 1/6 of your land for the poor. And it was a miracle. He was able to collect 4 million acres of land in donations, and he distributed those 4 million acres of land to the poor. And I walked with him. So I learned, as a Jain monk I was walking, and as a Gandhian I was walking, and so walking was my second nature. And so when I heard that 4 nuclear powers in the height of Cold War, Russia, America, France, and Britain, these 4 countries were engaged in arms race, nuclear arms race. So I decided to take the Gandhian message of non-violence and peace and nuclear disarmament to these 4 nuclear countries. So I decided to walk from India to Moscow. And so I walked through Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Russia, Moscow. It took me 10 months to walk to Moscow. And then
How old were you then? How old
I
were
was
you?
26.
Mhm.
I was 26, and I had a friend with me who was 27. So 2 of us. And in your invitation, you have a picture of me and my friend with a banner, Peace March. So that's a picture of my young age. I was 26 and my friend was 27. And then from Moscow, I walked through Belarusia, Poland, Germany, Belgium, and France. And then I went to, of course, I had to take a boat from Calais to Dover, but then from Dover to London, London to Southampton, and then I took a boat from Southampton to New York, and then from New York to Washington. So that was 8,000 miles, 13,000 kilometers walk. And I took no money with me. It was a completely walking without money on my 2 legs, 2 feet, and everywhere I was delivering the message of peace. And particularly, I met a wonderful young woman in Georgia near the Black Sea. And she was working in a tea factory. And she read my leaflet, and she read about me in her newspaper. So she said, how do you go without money? How do you eat? And I said, people give us food. And we don't have money, but people always ask us and they give us food. So she said, are you hungry? Now I can offer you some food. So I said, all right. She said, I'm working in this tea factory and we have a canteen, and please come and have tea with us. So I said, all right, any time is tea time. So I went in, and she gave me a cup of tea, and there were other, it was a lunch break. So many people from the tea factory gathered to talk to us about nuclear disarmament, about peace, about non-violence, and so on. And as we were talking, this woman had a brainwave. She went out of the room and came back with 4 packets of tea. And she said, this tea is not for you. I would like you to deliver 1 packet of tea to our premier in the Kremlin in Moscow, 2nd packet to the President of France, the 3rd packet to the Prime Minister of England, and 4 packets of peace tea to the President of the United States of America in the White House, and please give them a message from me. I said, what is your message? My message to them is, she said, that if you ever get a mad thought of pressing the nuclear button, please stop for a moment and have a fresh cup of tea. And this cup of tea will be a cup of peace. And you will have a time to think and reflect that your bomb will not only kill your enemy soldiers, but your bomb will kill all men, women, children, farmers, forests, rivers, lakes, soil. Everything will be destroyed. So nuclear weapons are not weapons, legal weapons, or not weapons of war. You must not use. That was a very inspiring 4 packets of peace tea. And so I said, this is my mission now. I have a mission. I'll carry these packets of peace tea and deliver to the Kremlin, to Palais Élysée, and to 10 Downing Street, and to White House. And I did. And so that was the story of my walk. And after that walk, I went India and I came back to England, and I was offered the editorship of Resurgence magazine. And so I became the editor, and I edited the magazine for more than 40 years. And during that time, one of my friend and mentor, E.F. Shumacher, who had written the book Small is Beautiful, he passed away. So in his name, I decided to launch and establish Shumacher College in Devon. So Resurgence magazine, Shumacher College, together with my message of ecology and environmental sustainability and organic farming and creating kind of utopia in my own way. And so that is a kind of, in a nutshell, my story.
And that's how you settled in the UK, right? And that's
Yes.
why you've stayed in the UK as well.
Yes.
I'd like maybe to come back to the Shumacher College, with so as to give you an opportunity to explain to our audience what it is exactly. It's a internationally renowned learning institute providing ecology-centered master's program, short courses, program about agriculture, etc. Can you tell us more about it and its approach to teaching sustainability? How do you teach sustainability?
Yeah, the most important thing about Shumacher College is that it is a college, but also a community, and where people are studying ecology, particularly deep ecology, and I will mention, I'll explain in a minute deep ecology, but not only studying intellectually, but also living it, practicing it. They are all vegetarians. They all eat only vegetarian food. They live simple life, and they live in a community. So it's a question, we say it, education of head, education of hearts, and education of hands. So it's not just the intellectual learning. It's not just theory. It's a practice. So the head, heart, and hands together. And so particularly we study Gaia, and we say the earth is not a dead rock, because many scientists think that earth is a dead rock. But there's a new theory, new science is science of Gaia, which says that earth is a living organism, and earth is a living being, and nature is alive. Nature is not just a resource for the economy. Nature is source of life. And this is because many universities are studying environment and environmental sustainability, but they still see that nature is inferior to humans. Humans are superior, and nature is only a resource for the economy. And we say, no, we have to go further, and we have to say that nature is not separate from us. We are also nature. Humans are also nature, because humans are also made of earth, air, fire, water, and consciousness. And all nature, animals, forests, oceans, mountains, they are all alive. They have intelligence. They have a consciousness. They have they have their intrinsic value. That's a deep ecology. The nature is not valued only in terms of her usefulness to humans, but nature has intrinsic value. So this deep ecology, and we are getting people to study at Shumacher College from all over the world. Many French people come, and people from all over, Germany, France, as well as Spain and Italy. And also we get people from America and South America and India and China and many countries.
Okay, and can you tell us more about the vision, your vision of the key levers to drive change in organizations, companies, society? Because as you said, you have many people also from companies coming to the Shumacher College. So you mentioned part of it, saying we need to learn by doing, and it's not only about the mind, but also about doing and living differently. Do you have other tricks, not maybe tricks, but advice to share with us on how to educate people, various type of people to ecology and sustainability?
Yeah. Now, the business is important. We all need business because we have to find our food, our clothes, our house has to be built, all the things we need. We need business. But what is the purpose of business? So at Shumacher College, we explore the meaning and the purpose. Now, purpose of business can be, at the moment, we think that purpose of business is to make profit, and all the other values are secondary. At Shumacher College, we are saying that that has to change, and we have to say that the making profit is only a means to an end, but the end should be more than just making profit. At the moment, profit making has become the goal. Profit making has become the aim. We want to change that, and we want to say that profit and production and consumption are the means, and the end is human well-being and well-being of the planet Earth and well-being of nature and well-being of the human spirit, and all these fine values are the end. So this is a question of sorting out the difference between means and ends, and what are the means and what are the ends. So business has to change the idea of what is the purpose of business. So purpose of business is to care for the planet Earth, care for human communities, provide services, and well-being of nature and humans, well-being of planet and people. That should be the aim. And production, consumption, profit, all these things are the means. And when you use them as a means and not as an end, then you can change and you can create a new kind of business, which is not only sustainable, but which is regenerative. And regenerative means it is like a cyclical economy. So no waste and no pollution. These are the two basic principles of good business: no waste, no pollution. So everything what comes from nature goes back to nature. So if you take something like in nature, there is no waste, but humans create waste. So cyclical economy. So everything what you take from nature, use it and go back to nature and regenerate nature, like you make compost to regenerate the soil. In the same way, everything what comes from nature should go back to nature. And make sure, like in nature, there is no pollution. Only humans create pollution. So why we humans are behaving as if we are not nature? So changing this aim, the end, and production, consumption, and profit becomes the means to an end. An end is planetary well-being and human well-being and caring for the planet and sustainable and regenerative future, so that this economy can last not only for 5 years, 10 years, or 100 years, but for millions of years. Because the planet has evolved over millions of years or billions of years, and had evolved in this wonderful diversity of life, biodiversity, cultural diversity, every kind of diversity. So we need to bear that evolutionary principle, and our business have to evolve in such a way that it can regenerate our life and not destroy life.
Maybe since you're talking about business, we can dig a bit further. Do you think that certain sector, certain industry have a specific contribution to bring? I'm thinking, you mentioned food already, maybe finance, maybe education, obviously, which is also a sector you mentioned and you're active in. Maybe the media, because you're an editor of a magazine.
Yes, absolutely. So the business and media and education, all those things are connected. Again, at the moment, our education is there to educate young people to become the part of this money-making machine and a part of this industrial production and consumption, and sustaining the old unsustainable economy. So our education is not geared towards sustaining planet Earth or sustaining human life. So people are being educated in big universities like Sorbonne or Oxford or Cambridge or Yale or Harvard. They are, the educated people are becoming the problem in our world. They are creating the problems. All the problems we face today are like a global warming, climate change, all these problems we face today are caused by industry and business and pollution. And those industries are run by highly educated people from Sorbonne or Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or Yale or big universities of the world. So we have to change that education. In the same way, media We have to change the media. Media is only obsessed with this economy and consumption and production and politics, and hardly anybody talks about nature, soil, water, clean air, clean food, how we live well, how good communities, good human relationship. These things are not talked about in most of the media. Most of the media is obsessed with economy and politics. So I think we need to change not only business, but also we need to change media, we need to change education, we need to change politics, we need to create a new revolution. I call it love revolution around the world in all subjects. And this time of COVID and corona virus that we are facing, we can see that if humanity come together and determined, and if they are committed to bring a change, they can do it. Like suddenly we had a 3 months of lockdown, and everybody stayed at home, and everybody slowed down, and everybody do more kind of walking, gardening, reading, being with the family, and consuming less, and all that. We can do it, slow down, and we have enjoyed doing it. And so what we can do in this critical time of COVID-19, we can do it in normal time, and we should make priority of not just the economy and making money and making profit and more production, more consumption, more shopping, apart from shifting from that and going into more human relationship, more caring, more culture, more poetry, more art, more music, more relationship, more friendship, all these fine qualities. And then of course we need food, we need clothes, we need housing, we need things, but they are secondary, and we must not devote all our lives just for production and consumption, and everything else is just icing on the cake. There's no real value. So, so the central position of the economy and central position of consumption and production must be changed, and central position should be of art, culture, music, human relationship, caring, sharing, and the consumption production should be as a side thing, as a kind of to help our human relationship better.
Satish, you've written a book called Spiritual Ecology, and I'd like to dig a bit into that with you, and especially if you could tell us more about the link between what I would call a change within, so change at individual or spiritual level, and change outside, which is collective change in society, in the environment, at planet level.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. My book, Écologie spirituelle in French, is published by Belfond. And what I'm saying...
L'écologie spirituelle en français, hein, I think. Yes. L'écologie spirituelle.
Écologie spirituelle. Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that there is an inner ecology and there's an outer ecology. And without inner ecology, outer ecology cannot be sustained and maintained. So as we look after nature outside, we also need to look after ourselves inside. And inner transformation, inner change, and creating a consciousness of compassion, kindness, generosity, love, contentment, all these values have to be cultivated in our heart, in our soul, in our spirit. I say there's a trinity, like in France you have égalité, liberté, fraternité. I have a new trinity for our time. And my new trinity is soil, soul, and society. So soil is outer, nature, and society is outer, nature and society. So nature and society is outer transformation. And the soul is inner transformation. So being able to be contented within ourselves and being able to love ourselves and be joyful and blissful and happy within ourselves. All this chasing and all this kind of ambition and all this kind of anxiety and fear that we are driven by, we have to work on ourselves. So inner spirituality and inner transformation and inner ecology are as important from my point of view as the outer ecology, because we need to sustain good business, we need to sustain good environment, we need to sustain good politics, But without our heart and our soul and our spirit and our consciousness and our compassion and love and caring and sharing and contentment and joy and blissfulness, if those qualities are not there, then we will still remain in anxiety and fear and anger. And if those qualities dominate our life, then we will not be able to be happy. So in order to be happy, we need spiritual ecology as well as natural ecology.
Okay, very clear. Thank you. I was thinking about ecology, and we've done a lot of work recently on this idea of the tipping point. So how do you go from a very active minority, very committed, very convinced about ecology, and to reaching the majority of people? Do you
Yes.
have so and a lot of us working in businesses or in NGOs, etc., are trying to do this, to reach this tipping point where an idea about ecology, about organic, etc., goes from a minority of people to a majority. Do you have an idea of where one should start if we really want to effect change? You've just pointed one way, which is inner ecology will lead to outer ecology. But do you have other advice for those people listening to you today who are change agents?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So the change agents, the first advice to them is that action itself has intrinsic value. Activism is a journey and not a destination. So when you are active, just value the activism and not always think about the accomplishment and what is the outcome and what is the result, all the time focusing on the result. That, because when you are focusing only on the result and you want to achieve something, if you don't get your expectations fulfilled, then you get disappointed. And in order to avoid disappointment, you need to focus on the action itself and say, acting itself is good. And action is a journey and not a place of arrival, not a destination. This understanding for all our activists and all our NGO workers and all our environmentalists need to have that. Secondly, we have to be the change that we want to see in the world. We always talk about change. We have intellectual ideas. We write about change. We have books about change. We campaign about change, but we don't live the change that we want to see in the world. So if you take the example of Mahatma Gandhi, you take example of Nelson Mandela, you take example of Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Vandana Shiva, Anita Roddick, yourself, you are a good example of living yourself and being the change that you want to see in the world. If we can be the change, that's the first principle for all NGO workers and all that. It's not just sitting in the office and sending emails, and that's not enough. How you live every day in your own life, you have to have a time for yourself and a cooking, gardening, walking, being in nature, being joyful, being happy yourself. That is first step. Second step is that once you live yourself, that's not enough. You have to communicate your convictions. You have to communicate your vision. You have to communicate your values. And many of our NGOs workers and activists don't have good enough skills of through music, through poetry, through writing books, through speaking, through many ways, learning to develop the skills of communication to reach large numbers of people. All the great changes have taken place in the past, like these have been great communicators. Mahatma Gandhi was a great communicator, and Martin Luther King was a great communicator, and Vandana Shiva and Anita Roddick are great communicators. We need many such great communicators. So that's a second step. Be the change, communicate the change. Then the third step is organize the change. We're just sitting in the office is not enough. We have to, like at this moment, after this the killing of the black man in America, there's a big organization of Black Lives Matter. It's a good thing because they are organizing all over the world. From Minneapolis it started, but now in every country people are demanding that Black Lives Matter. So in the same way, for ecological, environmental, utopian lifestyle, we need to create organizing. all over the world, like Greta Thunberg is organizing school strikes, and hundreds of thousands of young boys and girls in schools are stopping studying on Fridays and walking and marching. So that Extinction Rebellion is a good organization. But those organizations need to be continuous and sustained and long-term, not just one-off. So these are the 4 things I'm saying. First thing is, or 3 things particularly, be the change, communicate the change, and organize the change. If you do these 3 things, then our movement will spread much wider and much bigger, and more people will see that you are radiating the change by yourself, your life, and you are showing that there can be a good life without waste, without pollution, without overconsumption, without overproduction. You can live a good life in nature. That those examples are very important. We need to create a Shumacher College is one that example. So be the change, communicate the change, organize the change, then our movement will be effective and big.
Okay, thank you very much. Satish, we have an audience today which is made up of activist business people who spend a lot of time and energy trying to fix things that are not working in our world, trying to design strategies, positive strategies, and that obviously includes you've answered that question already, but I'd like to elaborate on this, especially this year in 2020. A lot of us have probably felt anxiety, doubt, fear, and very often when people spend their lives trying to fix things that are not working well, they can easily, I would say, fall into the trap of eco-anxiety or eco-anxiety or pessimism or even anger. And anger, activism can be very often fed by anger, by the way. So I'd like to know, what advice can you give each of us to fight eco-anxiety? And you've mentioned already the inner ecology bit, but I'd like really to dig in this, because this is really important. What is your secret to remain optimistic and joyful? I mean, maybe you're crazy, but that's just the answer. But I'm not sure that's the answer. And I remember, by the way, one of the last conversations I had with Anita Roddick, she was always telling me, the more I'm getting old, I mean, when I'm getting older, the more I'm in anger about what is not changing, because I'm getting more impatient. So what daily strategies can prevent people from being overcome with anger against whether politicians, against businesses, against the world?
Yeah. Now, Anita Roddick's anger was a righteous anger, and she transformed her anger into energy. She transformed her anger into activism. It was not an anger to create anxiety and put her down or depressed. So that was a good kind of anger. Anger is energy. And if you can transform your anger into activism and go out in the world and do something good for the world, then it's a good anger. So anger is not always bad. It depends how you use your anger. But what is bad is anxiety and fear. And if our ecology movement is driven by fear and expectations and always achievement, then and always expectation, achievement, fearing that I'm not going to get it, how our world is going to be doom and gloom and disaster. If that is the driving force, then that will create burnout, and that will create anxiety. So I would say that our movement should be driven by love. If we are driven by the love of nature, love of people, love of future generations, and we do our best in the service of humanity and the service of the planet Earth out of our love, and then leave the results in the hands of the universe. We cannot control results. We cannot control outcome. We cannot control achievement, but we can control what we do and how we live. So if our actions are pure and good, and our anger is transformed into activism, and every action is an act of love, and we do it as a kind of offering to the world and offering to the planet Earth with joy and pleasure, and whatever we achieve, we continue to serve the human. I have been an activist from age 18, you can say, until age 83. And I'm not burnout, I'm not disappointment, because I do it out of my love for nature, out of love for the planet Earth, out of love for people, out of love for future generations. and out of love for universe. So this universal love is a great power, and that's a utopian idea, because people think that love is not a realistic or pragmatic or practical thing. It's very idealistic. But I think we have to bring idealism and utopian vision into our daily life and say, do your action out of love. And when your activism is acts of love, then you will not have anxiety, you will not have burnout, you will not have disappointment, and you will always feel joyful and always feel committed and dedicated in the service of humanity, in the service of the planet Earth, in the service of future generations. That is our work. There's no need to be anxious, no need to be disappointed, no need to have burnout. It's a joy and pleasure to work for the future of humanity. It's a joy and pleasure to work for the sustainability, and joy and pleasure. And we are blessed to have this opportunity that we are being in the service of the planet Earth, sustainability, regenerative future, and future generations. It's our pleasure, it's our joy to do it. Why to have anger and fear and anxiety?
Then, especially in the last few weeks, we have heard a lot of people talking about collapsology, you know, the idea, the enhancing the risks of collapse of our civilization, especially with the COVID, and we'll come back to the COVID later. What do you think of this collapsology approach? Do you think it's useful to like send an alert, very strong alert message on the risk of collapse? Or do you think the risk of, how can you stay optimistic when you're so much focused on the risk of collapse of our civilization?
Now, when you talk about collapse, you have to ask, what will collapse? The mountains will not collapse. The Alps will not collapse. The ocean south of France, the ocean there is not collapse. Human beings are not going to collapse. Humanity will survive. Your art and music is not going to collapse. Your paintings are not going to collapse. Your love and friendship is not going to collapse. Your family is not going to collapse. What will collapse is this industrial juggernaut that we have built. What will collapse is this economic system of money and fossil fuel and mass transportation and mass tourism, and which is creating global warming. That will collapse. What's wrong with that collapse? There's nothing wrong with that collapse. We don't want this kind of industrial machine which is dominating humanity and destroying nature. So nature is not going to collapse. The earth will survive. Mother Gaia, goddess Gaia will survive. And our art, culture, our imagination is not going to collapse. And as long as we have imagination and use our imagination with love and care and friendship, we will look after each other and we will produce good food. Our hands are not going to collapse, and we will plant the seeds and we will plant the apple trees, and apple trees are not going to collapse. They will, one seed you plant in the seed, one seed will give 1,000 apples. So apple trees are not going to collapse. So soil, look after the soil, look after the trees, look after our human beings and human family. We are not going to collapse. And what will collapse? This industrial juggernaut, an industrial money machine, an industrial polluting system. Let it be collapsed. Never mind. I'm not worried about it. So what is most important and valuable is the imagination and human spirit and human relationship. And if we can maintain good human relationship, we have two hands, we can build beautiful houses, we can grow lots of food, we can make beautiful homes, we can make beautiful clothes, we can make beautiful furniture, we can write beautiful poetry, we can do beautiful paintings, we can paint Mona Lisa, we can paint Van Gogh, sunflower, we can paint Saint Victoire. Saint Victoire is not going to collapse. So there's no need to fear about collapse. Just say what we are doing, improve the quality of life and not the quantities of possessions. At the moment, our society is wedded to creating more and more quantities and forgetting the importance of qualities. So if we move from quantity to quality of life, then we can create a new culture, a new civilization, a civilization based on creativity and imagination and art and culture and music and good food and good relationship and good friendship. There is no fear of collapse.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'd like to come back to the current period and the COVID crisis. I know I wrote I wrote an article from you about the COVID as a call from the earth, an article that you wrote a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Can you again tell us why you think the current crisis can act as a booster of change? Are we talking about the health crisis or the economic crisis, and how?
Yeah. Now the thing is that when humanity goes through a crisis, we have to say this has come not out of blue. This has come the way we have treated nature, the way we have treated animals, and from animals the virus has gone into humans. So we have to understand, and so this is the voice of the earth, and the earth is calling us that now you have destroying, like a mother earth is saying to us, to our children. The humans are the children of the mother earth, and we children are behaving like a naughty children, and we are abusing our mother Gaia, mother goddess Gaia, and earth. So earth is saying that if you abuse your parents, if you abuse your mother, then mother is not going to be good and healthy. And so wake up. And so this is a wake up call from coronavirus. It's a wake up call. So we have to wake up, and we have to take care of our real source of life, which is the mother earth itself. And so our forests and our rivers and our land and our animals and our birds, our insects, our biodiversity, our cultural diversity, our humanity, all these needs to be brought back to real life. And this coronavirus and COVID-19 crisis is a call from Mother Earth. It's a kind of voice of the earth and wake up call. We have to wake up and change our way of this day after day after day, destroying our natural integrity of nature and integrity of the earth. If we can wake up and live a better life, and not, because this economic system is only making 1 or 2% of people very rich. 98% of people are almost like enslaving themselves day after day after day, in industry, in factories, in offices, in shopping malls, all that, working just to get the pay packet. And at the end, what do you do with the pay packet? Pay those big industry to sustain themselves, and buy, shopping. So I think this system is so blown that we have to change this. And this COVID-19 is a very good opportunity to rethink, reevaluate, slow down, and look at the qualities of our life and not the quantities of possession. So for me, this is a wake-up call. This is the voice of the earth, and this is the voice of the earth, and that humanity should not behave like naughty children, destroying their own parents, their own mother.
Do you have still, talking about the crisis, and especially we've had the health crisis, we're not exactly out of it yet, but and now we're entering an economical crisis. Do you have, which can lead to very sometimes tough situations or difficult situations for people, individually, collectively, at family level, etc. So do you have advice on how to face or how to go through this crisis that is going to last? People say it's going to last for months and maybe years.
Yeah. In this post-COVID-19, when we face the economic crisis, at that time, we need to live. I have written a new book, and that new book is coming out in French in January 2021, called Elegant Simplicity.
I love the title.
Yes. So elegant simplicity is the answer to the economic crisis. So we need to learn to live simply, consume less, waste less, and have a quality of clothes, quality of shoes, quality of furniture, quality of homes, everything good quality, but less. Less is more for the new system and new economy. So we need to have an elegant and simple life, and also we need to cultivate our skills. We need to cultivate our arts and crafts, and we need to make something. Humanity is not just a consumers. Human beings are not simply consumers. we should be makers. We should be poets. Poet means maker. So be an artist, be a poet, and not only artist meaning painting pictures like Van Gogh and Cezanne and a great other Picasso, but make everything you make should be work of art. An artist is not a special kind of person, but every person is and should be an artist. And so our gardening should be work of art, our cooking should be work of art, our home should be work of art, and we live like an artist, live like a poet, live with imagination. Then you can, with your imagination and with your skills and with your hand skills, we can face this economic crisis, and we can transform this economic crisis into economic opportunity and economic well-being and economic blessing. So let's transform this crisis into opportunity, an opportunity to become ourselves, opportunity to be ourselves and be like an artist, be like a poet, be like a proper human being, and not just an instrument of making money and making profit for big business, which is benefiting only 1 or 2% of people.
I'd like to maybe elaborate on that and to come back to one concept that is, I know, very key in your work, and that is also key on sustainability, which is the concept of voluntary simplicity. And it's not only a concept, it's also a movement. And you've just mentioned that living a simpler life and elegant simplicity is really about, I guess, I have not read the book yet, but I guess it's about voluntary simplicity. Can you tell us more about the movement and the concept of voluntary simplicity in this world of abundance of stuff, right?
Yeah, the abundance are two kinds. One is abundance of nature. Nature is abundant. And as I said, if you plant one seed in the ground, you get 1,000 apples in the return. So nature abundant. Every spring, you have millions of flowers or billions of flowers. Every autumn, you have billions of fruit. And nature provides so much food, so much cotton, so much wool, so much everything. So there is a nature's abundance. And then there is a consumerist abundance, which is production at the cost of nature, production at the expense of nature, production by destroying nature. And that abundance needs to be reduced, and we need to have a voluntary poverty. The word poverty has been hijacked, and the rich people who want to have more and more money say poverty is a bad thing. But in the Christian tradition, when you become a Christian monk, you take a vow of poverty and chastity and obedience. So poverty did not mean misery. Poverty did not mean hunger. Poverty did not mean depression or deprivation. Poverty meant voluntarily deciding that I'm going to have less material possessions so that I can have more imagination, more spirituality, more friendship, more time for myself, more time for my family and friends, more time for thinking and writing and poetry and music and painting and good things which I want to do, and not just 9 to 5, day after day, exhausting money making life. So voluntary poverty or voluntary simplicity, or I call it elegant simplicity, is a rich way to live, a very beautiful way to live, a very blissful way to live, so that your life is full of abundance of true things and not abundance of the stuff which is just mass produced and has no beauty and has no sustainability. You change it with fashion, and every season there's a new fashion, so you throw away your old clothes and make new clothes, and then throw away your shoes and have new shoes, and throw away your furniture and have new furniture. Such a wasteful abundance, and this abundance is not true abundance. So we need to have elegant simplicity, where clothes are made to last not only one's lifetime, but even my children and grandchildren and my daughter and son can inherit my nice clothes and wear it. So we have to make our life more elegantly simple but beautiful, not living in poverty in the sense that modern times people understand, but in the Christian sense of the word, where you voluntarily renounce too many possessions and live beautiful, blissful but simple life.
I'd like to ask you maybe about another concept that is key in your work and on sustainability. And obviously with the COVID crisis, a lot of buzz has been happening around this concept of interdependence, because obviously we saw that we are very much all of us in a way entered lockdown here in Paris or in India or wherever in the UK to save in a way people around us that we don't know, or maybe even people at the other side of the planet. So I think this concept of interdependence was very much talked about. And you have written a book a few years ago called You Are, Therefore I Am, which is very much about this concept of interdependence between us.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about what is your vision of interdependence?
Yes, my book, You Are, Therefore I Am, is translated into French and is published in France, called Tu es donc je suis. And this is the idea, because your philosopher, René Descartes, he was a kind of isolationist and dualist, Cartesian dualism, where I think, therefore I am, and I'm disconnected, I'm not related, I'm myself. This Cartesian dualism of mind-matter separation, and not the connection, and not the interdependence. So I am saying this new idea that you are, therefore I am. We are all interrelated, interconnected. Without the sun, I cannot survive. Without the soil, I cannot survive. Without the rain, I cannot survive. Without my parents, I will not be here. Without my teachers, I will not be here. Without all the knowledge I have received from others, the books I have read, the artwork I have seen, all the things have made me. If you take the sun away, the rain away, the soil away, the teachers away, the parents away, I'll be nothing. So I am made of the universe. I'm a microcosm of macrocosm. The universe is in me. So I am totally interconnected, interdependent, interrelated, and only connect. There's nothing else, only connect. There's a great teacher used to be in France called Thich Nhat Hanh, and he said, we are all interbeings, not separate beings, but interbeings. The greatest tragedy of Western science and Western philosophy has been based on separation. Nature, humans are separate. So we can exploit nature. We can use nature for our benefit. This idea of separation and disconnection has been the curse of Western civilization. So in order to heal Western civilization, we need to remove the idea of separation, and we bring back the idea of interrelatedness, interdependence, and we are all connected, we are all one. The unity and diversity should be celebrated. We are one, manifesting in many diverse life forms. So vive la différence, but difference is not separation. You and I are made of the same earth, air, fire, water, sunshine, and consciousness, but we are different. So the diversity is to be celebrated, and unity to be celebrated. But now in our modern Western civilization, we are turning unity into uniformity, and uniformity is not right. Uniformity of same kind of clothes, same kind of McDonald's food, same kind of Coca-Cola drink, same kind of high-rise buildings everywhere. All this uniformity is not unity. And then we turn diversity to divisions and say, you are French, I'm British, you are American, I'm Russian, you are English, you are Indian, I am Chinese, you are black, I'm white, you are Muslim, I'm Hindu, you are Christian, you are Buddhist. All these divisions are not right. Diversity is not division. Diversity should be celebrated, and through diversity we see unity. And so if we can rise above divisions and we see humanity is one, earth is one, we are all coming from the same one single source of life. At the time of Big Bang, there was no France, there was no America, there was no England, there was no Hindu, there was no Muslim, there was no Christian, there was no black, there was no white, there was no difference. There was a Big Bang. And then evolution has helped to evolve this wonderful diversity. So we should celebrate this diversity with joy and pleasure, and not fight that, oh, I'm British and I'm American, and America first and Britain first and Brexit and all these kind of Muslim and Hindu and Christians and Buddhists and Jains and Jews and all these differences. We should celebrate the diversity. It's a wonderful that we have so many religions in the world. If the 7 billion people followed only one religion, be it Hindu or Christian or Buddhist or whatever, it'd be boring. If the whole world spoke only one language, like French or German or English or Chinese, it'd be boring. We, in order to bring color in life, evolution has given us the gift of diversity. So we can have many languages, we can have many philosophies, we can have many religions, we can have many races, we can have many colors, we can have many beautiful different kind of hair, different kind of voices. Diversity should be celebrated. So interdependence, interconnected, and we are all one, in manifesting in diverse forms, is the beauty of life. And we are forgetting this beauty, and we are either stuck in uniformity or in division, and not this beautiful idea of interdependence and only connect, the connectedness. So I think we have to say, au revoir, Monsieur Descartes, and welcome to a new philosophy of unity of life. Tu es donc je suis. You are, therefore I am. If Elizabeth was not there in front of me, or even on my screen, I will not be able to speak. So I depend on you. You and I are connected, interconnected. So whole world is interconnected. That is the fundamental transformation and fundamental change we need in Western thinking and Western science. And Cartesian dualism has to be forgotten and create a new sense of unity and interconnectedness and interdependence. I'm very passionate about this interconnectedness. So please read my book, You Are, Therefore I Am.
Thank you very much. Maybe a last question before we move to the Q&A with the audience. We've had conversations with you a few weeks ago about the need for utopia and utopian leaders, and you've mentioned that already a bit in your answers. And as you can guess, that's a concept that matters to us and to me especially. Can you please develop your vision of the role of utopia for you in the way we design our present and futures? You know, because of the COVID, everybody in France was talking about le monde d'après, the world that's coming next. So everybody started again to reimagine how we could live differently tomorrow. So obviously sometimes dreaming of what could, that we could reset everything and reinvent our world.
Yeah. So le monde après is the one which we have to think. And I think utopian idea is like a torch in your hand. When you are walking in the dark, you need a torch. And the torch, as you walk further, the light goes further. So whatever humanity has achieved, we have still further to go. And in that going further, the light that is taking us forward, that is utopia. That we want to go where humanity can have more connected with each other, and more at a local level and as well as a global level. So we have to think globally. We are children of one earth and members of one earth community. This is utopian idea of global thinking, but local action, act locally. So our feet should be grounded, and our actions should be rooted in our food, our community, our family, our friendship, our art and culture and music. All these have to have a local distinction. And so this think globally, act locally, this is my utopian vision. So that one day, this is my dream, and I have a dream, and my dream is that one day we will have a kind of mind and consciousness which is universal and global, and our minds are expanding like a mind of God, a mind of the universe, and a big mind and a big heart where everybody is loved. But at the same time, our body and our life is rooted in the culture and the soil and the community where we are born and where we live. So the global thinking and local acting, this is my utopian vision.
Very good. As you know, as you may know, we at UTOPIES work a lot on local economies, living local economies. So obviously this rings a bell. On peut, je pense, passer aux questions parce qu'on est censé finir vers 15h30. Ça nous laisse 20 minutes à peu près pour les questions. Je crois que Marie a dû vous donner quelques instructions pour poser vos questions à Satish, et je pense qu'on peut les prendre en live. En fait, c'est plus vivant et plus sympathique que de les prendre par écrit. Donc, je ne sais pas, Pascal, peut-être si tu veux commencer, parce que j'ai vu que tu avais mis, je ne les ai pas lus, pour être tout à fait honnête, en écoutant Satish, mais voilà, si tu veux poser les questions, et je vous demanderai par contre de poser les questions en anglais, ou si vraiment ça vous pose un problème, vous les posez en français, et je pense que Marie pourra les traduire, ou moi, mais enfin voilà. Qui veut commencer sur la première question? Takes a bit of time for people to demute and think about their questions and
Okay, no problem.
I'm not quite sure that Pascal can connect, so maybe I'll just ask her a question.
Okay, thank you.
She was thinking, she was saying that she liked a lot your positive vision and what you're saying, but she's afraid that there will always be a part of humanity thinking about themselves before global sharing and the love of others and the love of nature, love of future generations. So how to compose with those who are not yet embracing the revolution of love?
There are many different ways to how to do it. As I said before, we need to first of all be the embodiment. The embodiment of utopian vision is necessary. Because like a radiator radiates heat, so the radiator is an embodiment of heat. So in the same way, we have to be embodiment. The ideas, when they are embodied, they become real. And so only way to influence the world and bring the change in the world and establish this utopian vision of universal consciousness and a global mind and a local living and local economy and local culture. This balance of the two, this is the kind of balance, is the kind of dancing between this global and local, like a male-female dancing. So the global and local dancing together, that has to be embodied. And so when we have our heart and our mind and our consciousness so large that we embrace the universality, and at the same time we are rooted in our land and in our garden, in our home, in our village, in our country, that is embodiment, is the key. We have to embody it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And how to find the right balance, I mean, with your time, with your energy to reconcile action, promoting ecology, for example. And
so how I balance? In my life, I balance. So first of all, I mean, I have a ritual every morning with my wife, and we sit together in the morning, 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock, 1 hour, and we read poetry to each other. And we have read, just now we have read Shakespeare, and we have read William Blake, and we have read Rumi and Hafiz, and Lanza del Basto's Return to the Source we read, and many, many sacred books we read. So this way, bringing spirituality into your daily life. So you begin your day with a short meditation or short poetry reading or something, prayer, whatever you, each and every one of you have to find a way of doing it. There's no one formula for everybody, but just start your day with who I am, what is my life, what I'm going to do, what is the purpose of my life, what is my big vision, what is my global and universal consciousness, and my love and my compassion. I am loving myself. All those things you have to begin every day with yourself. That's a balancing way. Before you start to work for the world and for the future generations and for the humanity and for changing economy and changing everything else, you have to start with yourself every day. Then I also balance my head with my hands, and I have a big garden. I have 2 acres of land, and so I go in the garden and I plant seeds and I weed and I water and I connect with the plants. So when you are connecting with the soil and working in the garden, in nature, and I have 15 apple trees, and in the autumn I make apple juice and I bring apple in the house, all that thing. So connecting with nature every day, we need to connect with nature. We have to go. You cannot protect nature unless you know nature. And unless you know nature, you cannot love nature. So loving nature requires knowing nature. And protecting nature requires knowing nature. So how do you know nature if you don't go in nature? So going out in the garden, going out to the sea, going out in the forest, going out in the park, and looking at the trees, looking at the birds, looking at the butterflies, looking at the bees, looking at nature and feeling the romantic feeling of nature in your heart, and you start to love nature. That's a balancing way. So you balance your activity. Then I write books, and I write essays, and I edit, and I do in my intellectual work. So that's very important too, because I don't want people just divided into, some people only work with their hand like laborers and workers, and the other people only do with their intellect and nothing else. This is not a balance. I want everybody to do something with their head and intellect, and everybody to do something with their hands. And so like Wendell Berry, there's a great writer in the United States. He has a 150-acre farm. And so he's a writer, he's a poet, and he's also a farmer. So I would like to see a new future of balancing where we use our whole body. We don't use just our head. We are whole body. So we use our hands, and we go out in nature, and we write our books, and we do some intellectual work. And this way, every day, this balance has to be struck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
From Louis in UTOPIES team. He feels that while for individuals, it's often seen as a very positive thing by society to choose to live in an elegant simplicity, but the consequences of a generalization of such a way of producing and consuming are often poorly accepted. So he's wondering what to answer to people who are still advocating for pursuing economic growth at all costs, and we hear some of them now after the COVID crisis, instead of aiming at for a long-term posterity.
The thing is that we are not going to make a perfect utopian world today. It is a process. It is a journey. And we are on a long journey. And therefore, people who are totally committed to economic growth at all costs, we have to live with them for the time being, because until their consciousness change. So we have to communicate, we have to organize, we have to we have to show the examples, but we cannot force it. We cannot dictate other people, and we cannot say that you are wrong, I'm right. No, no arrogance. With humility, we say to people that this is our way, this is our utopian way, and this is how we want. But we have to be humble, and in our humility, we say we do our best. And what we do, we show other people, and then let them decide, because we believe in spiritual democracy and ecological democracy, and people have to come to this kind of understanding, this kind of utopian vision for their own accord, from their own consciousness, and that we can only help them to understand. And by our being, by our poetry, by our writing, by our organization, by our conferences, we do our best. But we cannot control the change and transformation. So we be humble.
Okay, wonderful. I think we had a question from Sophie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, perfectly well. We cannot see you though.
Okay.
And we would like so much to see you.
Oh, okay. Can you see me now?
Dans ta caméra. Non, toujours pas, mais ça va venir.
Well, I'll ask my question and try to remove the video. So, hello, nice to meet you. I just wanted to know what's your vision of the best way to manage this economic transition toward a society of elegant simplicity, because less consumption in the current world will probably mean the loss of traditional job in the short to medium term. So it's hard to see how less consumption won't go hand in hand with economic precarity if we don't take alternative measure like, I don't know, universal revenue. So my question is, what's your vision of the best transition to operate, and what measure do we need to take in place so that it's not an economical too many people are in economic precarity? And also, what's the role of politics and government in this transition for you?
Yes, yes. The thing is that we don't need to fear too much because, yes, I can see you now, Sophie.
Hello.
The thing that we don't need to fear, we need to have a confidence. Humanity is very resourceful. When Britain was dependent on coal mining, and when the coal was disappearing because of fossil fuel and people were reducing, people were saying, oh, but what will coal miners do? How will they have a life? There'll be unemployment. But gradually people changed and they found different way of life. In the same way, now we are going through this fossil fuel economy based on fossil fuel and say, how are we going to do without petroleum, without gas, without nuclear energy? But now in Britain, 35% of energy is coming through renewable energy, solar, wind, and water. 35%. 20 years ago, not one wind power was producing energy. Not one mill was producing energy. Not one solar panel producing energy. So that change has come. So humanity is very resourceful. We can, if we want, can change quite quickly. Within 10, 15 years, we can change and create an economy which is not dependent on fossil fuel, economy which is dependent on arts and crafts and renewable energy and energy from solar and water and wind and human skill and human imagination. So we don't need to fear. We need to just go for it. And you will see gradually it will change. And the government has an important role too. And I think at this time, for example, in Britain, people are furloughing and the government is paying 80% of the salaries of all the people who are in this lockdown. So in the same way, in the future, government can say everybody will be paid a universal basic income. And therefore, everybody will have something to sustain themselves while they are creating a new economy, while they are learning new skills, a new way of gardening or building or living without fossil fuel and changing global warming, climate change situation. So human imagination and human creativity is boundless. It's not limited. We have to trust and have faith and have confidence in human creativity and human imagination, and humanity can, like in this COVID crisis, when there's a lockdown, everybody still joined together and they help each other. There are hundreds of thousands of volunteers around the world who are helping each other. If we can do something so drastic at this time of crisis, why can't we do the same kind of high level of humanity in a normal time? So I don't worry. Don't worry about how we move. We have an imagination, we have a creativity, we have skills, and we can do it. We can change this economy, which is dependent on fossil fuel, to a renewable energy economy and create a local economy, which will be much more sustainable and much more joyful and much more human.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Satish. Maybe one question, you mentioned the importance of relation to nature, spending time in nature, having a garden, cultivating your garden, etc. What about us living in cities? Should we leave the cities? Like we've seen many people during the seen many people during the COVID moving away from cities. And do you think that's like a long-term trend? Everybody's going to leave cities because we need nature anyway, or is there still hope in downtown Paris?
In my view, city life should not be an impediment or an obstacle to sustainable living. Every roof should become a garden. Why not? And every empty space in the city should be turned into vegetable garden. Why not bring some little ponds where you can have fish? Why not bring some little city farms where even in Paris, people can make cheese and people can make butter and people can grow some vegetables? I think city is not important. Every wall of the big building should be turned into garden, a vertical garden. So my garden is in the soil, in the land, but even on the walls, you can put plants. And even on the roofs, you can have plants. And even on the balconies, you can have plants. And wherever there's a park and garden, you can have flowers and fruit and vegetables and fish together. So I don't think everybody has to go out of Paris. Those who wish to go out of Paris and can find some land in the garden and a garden and live in the countryside, that's welcome. That's perfectly fine. But you don't have to all go out of city. Transform the city into a sustainable city.
Okay, as you know, we are in very important times now for cities in Paris, because everybody has, in France, because everybody has elected new mayors, a lot of whom are green, actually, mayors now. Okay, and if we were in UTOPIES offices, you would see that we have a marvelous green wall, a very big one, that unfortunately has suffered a bit with COVID and heat, especially not because of COVID, but because of the heat and the fact that we were not in the office. So we've reached the end of our conversation. Satish, thank you so much for spending that time with us.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
And I hope next time we can do it in real life in the office.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me, and your questions were beautiful and very lovely questions. I'm delighted to see your face on the screen, and I look forward to seeing you face to face in Paris in due course.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much, Satish.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye
Merci beaucoup à tous et à très bientôt. J'espère que cette masterclass vous a aussi enthousiasmé que nous. À bientôt.